Hi, welcome to my program, It's All About You. I'm Joanne Schultz, and I'm the coach for the evening. And with me is a wonderful guest, Lisa. And Lisa and I are going to be doing some coaching together around what's pertinent for Lisa. So I'm going to open it up with giving her the opportunity to tell us a little bit about herself, and then we'll figure out what it is we're going to be coaching about. We've had some conversation. I obviously have a little bit of a clue, but we'll see where Lisa goes with it. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Joanne. Thank you for having me on the show.
Sure.
You want me to talk a little bit about what I do?
Yeah, or what's on your mind, and then we'll fill in what background we need.
Okay, well, as you know, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I've been practicing for a long time. We won't go for how long. But for a number of years, I was a public defender, and for the past 5.5 or 6 years, I've been in private practice. I do a lot of contract work for the city of San Francisco, meaning I represent people who the public defender has a conflict with, either because they represent a co-defendant, they represent a witness. There's some reason why the public defender cannot step in and represent an individual. People like me are appointed by the court to represent those people.
Oh, interesting.
I also represent private clients as well, and those clients, both the court-appointed ones and the private ones, are adults charged with felonies and juveniles, minors who are also charged with felonies. What I want to do is I want to expand my reach. I want to be able to sort of pick and choose the kinds of cases that I'm interested in. I do a lot of narcotics cases and that sort of thing. They're interesting, but they're pretty routine. That's the kind of case that the public defender usually conflicts on. I'm actually very interested in doing more serious felonies, homicides, sexual assaults, whether it's adults or minors. I want to be able to pick and choose that kind of case. I also want to represent more kids across a larger spectrum that I'm now doing. I'm very interested in representing kids who have educational problems as well as their criminal problems. Right now I can only do their criminal cases. I want to be able to expand that and represent them in school settings when they're suspended or expelled from schools. They have a right to a hearing. So I'm interested in expanding my business to accommodate that kind of reach.
So what would you like some coaching around?
Well, what I need is to figure out how I can get what I want to do out there so that people understand. It's a marketing issue for me. I'm in a business where I'm competing for business with other attorneys. A lot of them have been in private practice for a long time. Most of them are men, and they certainly have a model that works for them. They're able to go out and get clients. I have had some successes of my own getting private clients, but I would like to be able to expand those opportunities.
So have you, the kind of client that you painted, kind of your ideal client, the kids in school and the different the non-narcotic cases, etc. Have you gotten those kind of clients? Do you represent them now currently in your caseload?
I do. I've represented minors and adults charged with homicide, sexual assaults, and that sort of thing. I do all the time, but I want to be able to do more of it in the private context rather than court-appointed work.
So have you had any private clients in that realm right now so far?
I have.
How did they come to you?
Well, it was word of mouth. Someone, I'm thinking of a particular case. I don't want to go into that person's individual issues, but in one particular case, it was a counselor in the juvenile court that liked my work and suggested me to a family to represent a young man. In another case, it was somebody that I go to church with who recommended me to an individual who was a husband and a wife needed representation. So I ended up representing the husband, and another attorney that I work with represents the wife. So that's how it was, a word of mouth thing.
Right.
I don't know if you know this, but years ago, lawyers really couldn't advertise. And it was mainly so that we wouldn't be doing the ambulance chasing and all that sort of thing. Now we can advertise. We do advertise. I want to be able to market myself in a way that is professional, that isn't ambulance chasing, but to let people know that I am not only going to do a good job, I'm going to do the best job for them. And it's just a matter of getting me out there to do it. I have some roadblocks, and I want to work with you on that.
Right. So what do you think your obstacles are? Because it seems like you're pretty clear about what you want.
Yeah, I'm clear. I don't know if it's my upbringing or reticence, but I don't like to get out there and toot my own horn. I watch other people in court, and I've seen lawyers rush up to the jail to talk to people who have just recently been arrested because they've been in the paper, and the attorneys want to get that case because they know it's a juicy case. Well, that's kind of borderline. You really shouldn't be doing that sort of thing. I have seen...
And not your style.
And it's not my style anyway. I have seen situations where you're representing a defendant on a case, and newspaper people will come up and they want to know about the case to put facts into their respective publications, and I shy away from that kind of thing because really this case is about my client. It's not about me.
No, it is about you.
It is about me. But I want to be able to do that in a way, that gets my message across, but being respectful of them at the same time.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have had some success with word of mouth and cases coming to you. Did that work for you? Was that a nice experience?
Yes, they were. Of course, you feel like you want to do the very best job you can for any client, but for those clients in particular because they sought you out.
Right. Absolutely. So. And that's the best, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure you did a fabulous job.
Well, I tried, certainly trying. I'm in the middle of a case right now that it's fascinating, a lot of legal issues, and keeps me up nights. But I enjoy doing it. I'm so thankful that I was called upon to work on the case.
Well, have you thought about going back to those people who have championed you for these private referrals?
No, I haven't. How would I do that?
Well, minimally to say, thank you. And you may have done that afterwards, but maybe to go back and to tell them that you are expanding your practice to bring in more private clients. And do they have any referrals?
Okay, well, this is criminal defense, and so we hope that nobody needs me. On the other hand, I'm there if you do. But I was also thinking about doing seminars. And I was wondering what you think about that. What are the topics, pardon me, or the approaches I should be using if I were to go into that arena?
Well, you know better than I, as a content expert, what people need to hear in your professional field. I personally, as a coach, love to educate as my marketing. I would much rather stand with a group of people and facilitate a dialogue around some content that they get to dive into better than anything else. And in my experience, that generates work.
Well, give me a for instance of what you mean.
Well, like, I love leadership. So if I teach a leadership class, we were talking about emotional intelligence. If I teach a class on that topic, inevitably somebody will come to me afterwards saying, I think I need coaching, or realize that maybe there's a way for me to expand what I'm doing based on the frame that you just gave me. So it's sort of laying out an opportunity for people to think more deeply about themselves and to look at or they'll come up after and they go, you know what, we have a group that's going through this kind of transition. I think we could use your facilitation skills. Or so I think demonstrating what you do so people can learn something for themselves makes you memorable.
Well, how do you present those kinds of ideas in a non-threatening way? Again, I mean, I represent people after they've gotten into a lot of trouble. Right. They're looking at perhaps going to prison, right. perhaps going to the youth authority. They call it something different now, but you know, they have some real consequences to behavior that they're facing.
Well, I don't think those people are your customers. I mean, ultimately they're your clients.
Right.
But the people who will send you business are not the offenders themselves,
that's
right?
interesting. Okay.
So the people, to me, who would send you business are your professional network, or the people that know what you do, like the people at, you said somebody from church referred you. So if you were to bridge that to what would the average person who goes to church in your church want to know about minimizing the risk of their kids getting in trouble, for example.
Well, that's a good idea.
That you would talk to them as a person who is an expert in that field. And it's not to say that they would then say, oh, well, you know, they would know now who they could call if that was happening. Or if they had a friend of a friend of a friend, or somebody at work kid got in trouble, they go, hey, I know a woman, I know Lisa. She just talked about that topic with us at church.
So that's interesting. I've been focusing maybe on the wrong person as my customer. You've made the point that the client and the customer aren't necessarily the same person.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is, where do your referrals come from? And I think those people are the customers that you're going after.
Okay.
So I would think about what you can provide to the people that have already sent you business, and what would they need, and maybe even the network of, like, the champion within the other person who was already within the courts, right? Who said she liked your work and she made a referral to you.
Right.
Is reconnecting and saying, thank you, and do you have any other referrals for me, because I'm expanding my practice.
Okay.
And sometimes those people don't know that you're even available.
Right.
You know, they may have think, well, I thought of Lisa, and you're like, yeah, these are perfect. And you can tell them things like, that's my ideal client.
Okay.
So I would look at who your network is professionally as well. These people laterally to you that are referring on.
Would you have a seminar or a little, you know, get together, invite people to a talk, or?
You know, like you said you want to work with kids in school, for example, and you think, well, now who is interested in kids at school? Well, the kids might be, but maybe not as much as the teachers or the parents might be, or the school board. So you could maybe talk with them about, well, what are your needs in keeping kids safe and out of crime, and how can maybe what I can do is help you with my experience of what I see go on and what kids get in trouble for, and how that works in the system, and maybe teach you something about how to deal with that. Or maybe you have a Q&A session so they could ask you questions about, you know, if kids do this, what do I have to look out for? Or what does this mean? And, you know, maybe there are things that they need to know.
Okay.
So for you, I think it would be connecting with people to find out what they need.
All right.
And remembering you're a content expert.
Exactly. Yeah. That sounds like I can see myself doing that.
It's a way more interesting for me personally to approach it from the standpoint of, what do you need and let's fill it in, versus running, I don't know, an ad.
So you're letting them define what the issue is. You're letting them almost be the expert of their own issue, and then I can come in and provide information around those issues.
Yeah, I think you're the content expert they need to help them deal with the reality of day-to-day living.
What about the whole idea of branding? You know, I mean, I don't want to compare myself to a bottle of mayonnaise, but let's say I'm a bottle of mayonnaise on the shelf, and there are other guys wearing dark suits.
You're generic in somebody else's helmets, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
How do I dress myself up so that they pick my brand over somebody else's?
Well, that is a huge question, and I am not an expert in that area. There are people that, you can find coaches that specialize in branding and marketing, absolutely, and I would go after them, ask that question. The one thing that I think it always boils down to is, what arena do you want to play in? And it can be virtually, in my experience as a coach, if I want to compete against the top dogs, I do have to look more like them, or I have to have something that puts me in that I look big, you know?
Right.
And a lot of people have different ways of looking big,
Well, give me.
They associate.
Yeah.
They create. You see a lot of people have an associates. They have a network of people. A group of 20 coaches, a group of 20 attorneys, a group of 20 accountants that they network together. And that becomes, and they're all, maybe they're independent, maybe they're subcontracted to the top person, but it's not necessarily that all those people are employees, but now they have this network. And that creates a bigger profile.
I see.
There's ways to do that from a business development standpoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So
I think, but the question for you though is, why do you want to look big, or why, or who is it? To get the business, do you really have to do that, or is it, what's your path? How do you want to get them?
Is that a question that you're asking me, or is that more rhetorical?
I think it's kind of rhetorical, and you can also comment on it.
Well,
but that's the reflective piece as a coach, I would say. I think you need to think about.
Yeah. Again, I'm interested in working on cases that are beyond the. And I hate to use the word mundane, because for a person who's charged with a drug case, it's not mundane.
No,
to
you're
them.
talking about your professional. You've been doing the same thing on your own for 5 years.
Right.
You're talking about needing some fresh air.
Exactly. And spreading my wings, so to speak, and getting to other places. That's exactly right. So.
You're talking about reinvention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
So it isn't about the people you're serving.
Right.
I get that.
Right. So, but to answer your question, it's almost as though I kind of see myself moving beyond the Bay Area. This is a very finite space with very accomplished attorneys who most of whom do very good work. And I'm thinking, in order
of which you are one.
I like to think so. I like to think so. But I want, it's a small pool, and there are a lot of people drinking in that pool. I'm thinking maybe I need to get beyond that. And how do I launch myself from where I am to where I want to be?
What does that look like? What do you mean when you say getting beyond that?
Well, maybe I want to go to some of the smaller counties where they don't have access to as many qualified attorneys, and bring what I know about the practice of law to other people. How do I do that? How do I get myself into a completely, for me, foreign area to practice, where I am, accepted for doing good work? How do I? Do I just show up? How do I have an advanced team, or how do I get my message out there before I actually get to where I want to go?
Right. Well, I think you got to know what your message is, but before even the I think there's this idea of, well, what is your message? Yeah. Who is it that you want? Is it the ideal customer profile that you want to paint? Right? That's coupled with your competencies that create good results, as you've demonstrated in San Francisco.
Right.
So then the bridge is, how do you bridge out to...
Right.
So, it kind of comes back to like maybe marketing consulting, somebody who understands that arena, whether it's advertising or whatever the deal is. But in my experience, it's all about networking. It's all about getting the word out and letting people know what you do, and who are those people that are key people to champion your causes.
So are you saying that I should start in my own circle here and identify, as you put it, my customer base, and have them network for me, or are you saying something else?
Well, I think it's I don't know the answers. I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
I think it's maybe it's making a target list. Maybe it's thinking about, okay, so
what's a target list?
well, like, how do I want to go about this? Maybe it's who are the people that I want to serve, and get really clear on that. It's kind of like the 30-second elevator speech. Who do I want to serve? What do I bring that people will want me to serve them, and how can I help you? So it's that, here's what I do. So you say, I'm Lisa, I'm a criminal defense attorney, I'm interested in working with, youth populations and education on these kinds of issues. That's what you say, or however in your own words. But to get to that, you got to go from that all the way down to this, succinct statement. And then who are those entities or people or whatever who can help you bridge the gap?
Right.
So let's say you decide that you did some research and noticed that San Joaquin County needed somebody, or Santa Clara County needed needed different representation. So you kind of think to yourself, well, who are my contacts?
Contacts here.
Who are my existing contacts?
Okay, all right.
And it's almost like, when I first became a certified coach, I went to my existing customers and said, I'm shifting my business from 80% consulting and 20% coaching. I'm flipping it. And here's what I want. So I'm not so much interested in consulting projects anymore as I am in coaching development in individuals and teams. And I talked about that for a year.
Really?
Yeah, just so they could get it.
It took that long for people to understand? Or did it take that long also for you to really concretely define what it was that you were trying to do?
I bet it was both in retrospect. But it was also the whammy of existing people understanding that I was doing something.
Okay.
Doing the little bit as the big bit.
Right, right.
And so they have to wrap their arms around that. But I figured my existing base had to know that first.
Well, I like that whole idea about the 30-second elevator speech, because that really, you've only got 30 seconds to say who you are, what you're about, and what you want to accomplish. And we've been talking for a while now, and I still haven't really concretely defined what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So I'm going to have to spend some time on that.
Yeah. I think you're in it. I think is exactly. And what happens, just from a kind of an adult renewal standpoint, what happens when you get into these boxes of kind of this trap stuck, I want to reinvent, I'm not quite sure. You need an exit plan, and you're actually doing your exit plan. Your exit plan is trying to figure out, how do I figure out my ideal client? How do I figure out where they are? And then how do I get to them?
Right.
And so you're in the midst of all that. This may be your first or 15th conversation, but you're not quite there yet. Okay. So you're on the right path.
Right.
And so the more you talk maybe with other people about what you're looking for, talk to some of the private attorneys who are getting the clients that you want, and say, how do you get your clients?
Right.
I'm looking to do the same thing, and I've gotten a couple, but I'm wondering if you'll share that with me and what works, or do you see any gaps in the field that maybe I could help? My work?
Right. I talked to one friend very recently who told me that when he left the public defender's office a number of years ago, he made it a point not to take contract work because that's seductive and alluring, and you don't have to, you're there, the work's there. So he made it a point of not doing it, and what he relied on were, as you're talking about, contacts within the civil arena, attorneys that are in big civil firms. He made a point of letting them know, here, I'm out here. If a criminal case comes by that you don't feel like you can handle, and they usually can't because that's not where they have focused their time, then here I am, and he's done really well. But that, to me, is scary.
Now we're getting to it. What's scary?
Well, because I've got a house and a mortgage, and
you mean not taking the
That's to get out there and to just say, okay, I'm going to wait for this business to show up. Mind you, I'm sure he didn't just sit on his hands.
Right.
But that it's a terrifying.
Well, you don't have
me.
to do it his way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can sort of take that off the back burner right now.
But there is something
to
there's
creating
something
the
to
space.
There's something to be said about doing contract work because it is there. You know that there's a steady.
Absolutely, it's bread and butter.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what's keeping me from doing what I really want to do.
Well, I definitely think you need to think about that, because that's a great obstacle to look at. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think, and you said, you have to have some space.
Right.
What are you going to do? You're going to hire somebody else to be your space,
Right.
or what? You can. People do that all the time. They continue working. They get somebody to market for them, right?
Right.
And then they bring them business, and then they shift.
Right. Right.
So I think the point being is that there's a lot for you to think about. You're in a really exciting time.
I think so.
A really exciting time.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to wrap it up, and it's so juicy.
It's just getting started.
Well, thanks for sharing so much. So out of all the things we said, just quickly in the next minute, what sticks with you?
The 30-second elevator speech, being concrete about what I need to do, and understanding who my customers really are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice going. Nice
Thank you.
synthesis. You're welcome. Well, thanks for tuning in to It's All About You. Thank you to Lisa for her challenging and stimulating and compelling discussion. We'll have to see how she fares. I'm sure she'll work it out. And please join us again for It's All About You. Good night.